Hello, it's fabulous having all of you back here with us in the series entitled Karma, Destiny and Choice. Today we will be looking at the interesting topic entitled What is my Agenda? Hello, Sister Denise, welcome back.
Hello, Magla, thank you.
What is my agenda? I found it particularly interesting and thought-provoking when you shared your experience of what you shared with the soldiers in the Philippines. And this got me thinking as to how one's agenda/intention affects not what one does, but how one does it.
It's very few people who have an ideal job. If your job is in the police or the military, then you find yourself confronted with duties that come into conflict with your conscience according to your religious background. For example, in religion it will say thou shalt not kill. Whether that applies to flies and mosquitoes depends on the individual, but when it comes to a human being, it starts to get quite serious. And if you're in a situation where you have to kill another human being in the line of duty, you may find it very difficult to manage because it's in conflict with your religious beliefs. In the job, you don't assume that you're going to come in conflict with your religious beliefs until something starts happening. And this was the question, what happens to my soul if I kill someone? There are rules of engagement and there are war crimes, which means that the people who sat down to figure out what's okay and what's not okay had to have thought really long and deep about this. And in terms of the laws of karma, we do also have to think long and deep because of the aspect of gratuitous cruelty. Now, if you have gratuitous cruelty or sadism, there's a question. I refer again to a film called The Green Mile, which is about people who are on death row. And in that there was one character who had a certain immunity because he had contacts with people in high places. He had a very sadistic nature and he would do extremely cruel things to people and get away with it because of his connections. As the film progressed, ultimately he got his comeuppance, and it was quite an interesting film which examined people who were in charge of a prison and other prison officers having to discharge their duty, which included executing individuals who were on death row. They made sure that they did everything for the fastest death, but this sadistic one made sure that he didn't do it, and it caused a horrific disaster. The punishment came to him really severely. It just showed you cannot get away with anything. And so a person who's honorable and still in a job which requires taking another person's life, when they do it from an honorable mentality, then it does not have an adverse effect on your soul. If you are committing a crime, it does have an adverse effect on your soul and why you are committing a crime. Sometimes you may kill someone by mistake, and the law will take that into consideration, involuntary manslaughter or something. So you get a different punishment from premeditated murder, or if you're a serial killer or something like this. So intention makes all the difference in the world.
There are situations where someone is called upon to do something harsh. And I'm glad you mentioned people who work for the police force and soldiers. But I'm thinking of other situations as well. What you are saying is that what you do matters and how you do it matters even more. when there's a duty on you to punish somebody. I'm talking about a parent who has to rectify a child's negative behavior, or a police officer, or someone in a position of authority. What happens when such a person acts in anger? So they will do what they do because they have to do it, but there's the additional factor of aggression, anger, and violence, and sadistic attitude.
Anger, violence, sadism they will have to pay heavily for that, especially if it's against a child. You will pay far more heavily for violating a child than violating an adult, because the child cannot defend himself or herself.
And animals?
You pay more heavily for violating another human being than an animal. But there are some cultures, indigenous cultures, treat animals as humans, and they feel they have the same rights, the same dignity. So in those cultures, what you do against an animal or against a human is the same consequences, because an animal has rights. But the modern culture is a meat-eating, hunting, shooting, fishing culture. If ever you go to the Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, there's one section where bison are there. And in earlier times, when the white man first came to America, the bison herd was 12 miles wide and 15 miles long, and they would shoot them until there was nobody left and leave them rotting just for fun. That is very heavy karma. If you need to take the life of an animal for food in a culture which is meat eating, as in the Native American Indians, they will usually request, and they will take one animal and feed the whole village with this. And there is no negative karma from that, because it's functioning very similarly to the way a lioness will take a buffalo and feed her family, and so many other animals will come and feed on that carcass until everybody's fed.
As humans, we tend to justify our weaknesses. We use reason, we use justification, we make excuses. How do these three play out as far as the law of karma is concerned?
How does justification play out?
Yes. Is there such a thing as far as the law of karma is concerned, how does justification, making excuses, and reasoning play out? When I say I had to be angry, otherwise these people would not have taken me seriously.
Well, it depends what you did in your anger. If you shouted at them, that's one thing. If you hit them, that's another thing. If you shot them, that's another thing. If you act in a commanding way and you're firm, that's not called anger. You have to use the word anger for when you're out of control.
As human beings, we tend to say things to ourselves to justify our behavior. Sometimes internally, our conscience may tell us that we're doing something wrong. We do it anyway. We justify. I'm thinking of a situation where you're in a position of authority and you have to act, but then one becomes aggressive and you speak out of aggression and you act out of aggression. What is the karma of that, and is there justification for performing a negative karma?
You mentioned the key word conscience.
Yeah.
If a person goes against the voice of conscience anyway, then it's a negative karma. You will not get any reduction for the punishment because you went against your own conscience. So there is no way out of that. If you had to do an act of self-defense, you have a moment sometimes, only a moment, to judge what is the right thing to do. And when you're really close to your conscience will tell you exactly what's the right thing to do. You don't consult any books or anything. It's an immediate thing. It's when you go against your conscience because of some other negative desire or a bad character trait. That's where you start doing really bad karma, and you will really suffer for it.
If one wants to change the error of their ways and wants to become more aware, does that mean that I have to look at my motivation at any given point in time?
You have to be aware of why you're doing what you're doing.
Tell us why this is important.
Because your motivation is everything.
Your motivation determines the karmic consequence of what you're doing.
You're looking at why you're doing it. You're looking at the circumstances. You're looking at the options. And a lot of time you have only 1 second in which to calculate. But if you're sharp and smart, you will do the right thing at the right time. You have to be very careful to be sober. Because
that's funny. We're not talking about alcohol, are we?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I thought you meant sober in the bigger picture, but let's talk about alcohol.
This is one of the very important things, that in some communities, alcohol is put into that community by another community because they know that that community cannot handle alcohol, and it will make them behave in an erratic and irrational manner, and they criminalize the people having got them under the influence of alcohol, and this is a way of manipulating the community through the use of alcohol. So while alcohol is legal, it's no better than illegal drugs because it's a mind-altering substance, and it reduces a person's willpower, and it disconnects a person from conscience, and it prevents a person from being adequately rational. This is why mind-altering substances that are used for recreational use is going to damage a society.
I'm thinking of revenge. Let's talk about revenge. But before we get to that, if someone physically harms a person and that person retaliates physically in order to protect themselves, is that revenge or is that justifiable?
No, that's self-defense.
That's self-defense. But if a time period has passed after the attack and the victim then
attacks the attacker,
then
that's revenge.
Okay, so at the time that you're being attacked and you protect yourself with using violence, then that's no karma accumulated.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do it afterwards, that's revenge, and then you're creating karma.
Because according to the laws of karma, which are set within a normal social system, you need to refer to the law enforcement agencies in this case and make an accusation against the person and go through the normal legal processes. That would be correct karma.
My mind goes to the hashtag #MeToo movement that has swept all across the globe. How does karma play a role there?
There's some additional situation in here, and that is the patriarchal system condones sexual aggression of men in power against women who are not in power. And yes, that creates a big karmic account, and I think that what the Me Too movement is responding to is an accumulation of misogynistic behavior against women that's been going on for several centuries, and it's all blowing up in the face of everyone who has been perpetrators, and the women who have been in a way bribed to have silence are breaking that all over the place. and standing up for themselves. I think quite an interesting example of negative karma that's been going on over a long, long period of time. You can compare it also to a similar situation where some people, like in the Roman Catholic Church, an accumulation of pedophilia over many, many years. I don't know if it goes to centuries, but definitely decades. And then all of a sudden, you know, it all blows up. Institutionalized negative karma will produce a backlash which will affect not just the individuals concerned, but the institution which covered for them, or in the case of the Me Too, the industry which covered for them. You see, because it's the film industry and the media industry, the music industry, which has power and will abuse that power. So there's a tyranny, you see, and the consequences of tyranny are very severe, and they come after a long time, but they come strong, and they are going to affect lots of people who are complicit in that tyranny.
You say that motivation is everything as far as your karma is concerned. Tell us what you do with this from a pragmatic standpoint. I'm speaking about one's day-to-day life. How do you go ahead?
You have day-to-day life, but you have an overall agenda for your life. The purpose of my life is to, live now, pay later. That can be your agenda. Just get as much gratification as you possibly can and not worry about the consequences. That may be your agenda, but sooner or later the consequences will come. If your purpose in life is to be of benefit and to love and receive love, and relationships is your agenda, that's a very good one. If you want to leave a mark and give some legacy of your talents and capacity to further generations, that may be your underlying motivation. So even in your day-to-day life, which is ordinary stuff, but is still motivated by this agenda. And you hear of people having a hidden agenda. Mm-hmm. So the hidden agenda is that you make people think that such and such is your agenda, but in reality it's some different thing, some very sinister agenda that's covered by your performance, which is deceptive. But that's your motivation.
So when the law of karma operates, it operates taking into account your agenda, both hidden and non-hidden.
It looks at the realities, whether they're hidden or visible. And why you do something is everything,
Oh, that's big. Wow, that's like big. Okay, I think we can stop the entire series now. Why you do something is everything. Did you get that? I hope you did. That's big.
Yeah.
So few people know this because we place so much of emphasis on our words and so much emphasis on our actions that we do not focus sufficiently on what's going on the inside.
Well, we need to, because the law of karma is going to respond on why you did this.
Okay, so hold on. I'm getting some major realizations here. So what the law of karma does is that if you perform an action, it takes into account the full extent of your action, and more importantly, it takes into account the thought and attitude and motivation behind the action.
Absolutely, that's everything.
Oh, whoa, that's like big.
Because accordingly, you have to give the punishment.
Or reward.
Or reward.
Yeah. So, Sister Denise, Prince William didn't become Prince William because God woke up God doesn't make up, because God said, what a nice young man, I'll make him the future King of England. Are you saying that he earned it?
Absolutely, he earned it. He had to have done whatever karma is required to become a crown prince, and that means he had to have been immensely generous in his previous birth in many areas, because that produces a kingdom.
And a crown.
And a crown.
So when we're looking at the law of karma from the perspective of a gender, what you are saying is every single thing that is in one's life on every level is earned. Everything is earned.
Yes, and when I use the term agenda, I use it like your motivation.
Yeah, which is a synonym for intention.
Yes.
Or not.
Yes, yes. Why are you doing this? Why do you wake up in the morning? Why do you go to work? Why do you beat up your wife? Why do you fool around? Why do you care about what happens to the planet? You know, why is everything.
It appears that this is where human beings make a serious mistake in understanding themselves and the world outside. We focus on the what and perhaps the how, but not sufficiently on the why, because the why is on the inside.
Yes, definitely, and it has everything to do with who you are, why you do what you do. You know,
I don't want to go lie down somewhere and just, absorb all of this. This is so big. Why is this such a well-kept secret? Why are you speaking about this in the year 2019? Why isn't it taught in every school in every country across the world? Why?
Well, I've always had it as the most important aspect of my life, so I didn't know that people don't know.
Yeah, but you're Denise Lawrence. I mean, seriously, there's only one of you, and there's millions of the rest.
No, but I think many people are very connected with why they do what they do. You know, one thing I've noticed? When people are being socialized, that connectedness between you and why you do something, people will break it so that they can control you, so that you will do what they want because they want to get their work done through you. And I've always been impossible to manipulate in that way because my connection with why I do something is so strong that on pain of death, I will not go against that principle. And it's come to it a few times, and I cannot break that. I cannot behave contrary to my essential motivation for anything.
Or anyone.
Or anyone, much to my cost.
On that cliffhanger, we have to draw to a close today. This episode has been such an eye-opener, and I hope you at home have been experiencing the wow and the fireworks that I have been experiencing. Please consider what Sister Denise has shared today, that what you do is important and how you do it is important, but why you do what you do is supremely important, and it determines the feedback or the return of the karma that you receive in every aspect of your life. It's such a powerful message, and the aim of the series is to assist you, the one who is spiritually aware and wants to grow spiritually, how to create the best possible future for yourself. I hope today's episode has been of immense benefit to you, and I do hope that today you have received some food for thought. Thank you and take care. Goodbye.